What is going on? Woodward Bets back in the house on a Wednesday night. Beer and Scott here to get into our look at the NFL slate for Week 18. If you missed yesterday's show, we talked all the motivations of all the teams. I know it can get confusing. Who's playing for what? We're going to continue to look at that, but today we're going to break down each game. We'll take a look at the NBA as well, give you some thoughts there, but really football-centered here today. Scott rocking the wings on the whiteboard, on his chest. What's going on, my man? A lot of hockey there for you today.
Man, how can you not be excited about the local teams kind of around here lately, Chris? I mean, you would turn on the Red Wings. They're spanking San Jose. It was like 6-2. I mean, we're seeing sweet little passes from our Rookie of the Year candidate, Lucas Raymond, to our captain. He runs down, shoots it in the back of the net. I was thinking, man, this is great. We see our bruiser. It was like the old days, Chris. I mean, Smith's whooping some ass, and we're out there scoring goals left and right. I mean, it was an exciting hockey game to watch. It was one of the very first ones I can literally say I watched from start to finish, and that was pretty good. I mean, I tried to watch that Michigan game, Chris, and that basketball team. Oof. I don't know, they need to get it together over there. So I spent more time paying attention to the Wings. I had a couple wagers on the Wings, so was pretty excited about that. I actually bet on Larkin to score a goal, and obviously we know he had a couple, but when that one happened there, I was obviously pretty happy there. But man, I'm telling you, the Yzer seems to be in full effect, man. I keep hearing about these other guys we have, some my hockey snob buddies that are really into it, knowing some what we have in the pipes, and man, they're just more excited than can be. And just hearing them talk, I just think the Red Wings here might be on the quickest pass. So I was pretty excited here to watch that game yesterday. Obviously, I was fired up today.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan, not so much. So you had to have something positive to talk about. I believe it's the first time in school history they lost to Rutgers on the hardwood. So the Red Wings, the bright focus of yesterday. But we're also going to start, we talked about it yesterday, and something we want to incorporate a little bit more into the show is a lot more of the local teams. And, not just the spreads, the totals. We're still going to give you that. We're going to dig a little bit deeper when the local teams are playing. So lucky tonight, we do have the Detroit Pistons on the slate, so we're going to get into more involvement in those games, looking into half bets and quarter bets and things like that, but more specifically, prop bets that we like for the games. Give you guys more ways to bet on some of these games. So we'll be going through the FanDuel Sportsbook to find some of the best odds on some of these games. So if you're a Pistons fan, stay tuned. We're going to have more than just spread and totals picks for you here tonight. A few props I am really liking tonight, some things Scott's eyeing up for this game as well. And we're going to continue to do this. If there's some local teams on the docket each and every day we do this show, we are going to spotlight some more bets than just lines and totals for you guys. So let us know what you think of this as we move forward here. If the Red Wings are on, we'll try to get Beastie on with us, get some thoughts in the NHL. Obviously, Lions every Sunday. We're talking all about the NFL, but we're going to spend a couple extra minutes on the local games anytime they are on the slate. Even Michigan State, the Red Wings, like we mentioned, the Tigers once baseball gets started, and on slow days if Central, Western, Eastern guys like that are playing, we'll get into those games as well. But tonight we'll shine a light on the Detroit Pistons, Scott. So excited to dig a little bit deeper, give people even more for these local teams here tonight, starting with the Pistons here on Wednesday night against Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, we understand here we're trying to get the people what they want here. I mean, we're sports bettors, Chris. We understand what's happening, what kind of information we like. And, hey, we understand. We're in Detroit. We're in Michigan. Most of us are going to bet on the teams we like to watch. Been talking with the guys down at the FanDuel Sportsbook, all those guys down there, and which are great and becoming pretty good friends of ours. But, the thing is they all say, hey, most of the handle we get are on our local teams. So, obviously, there's the game within the game, Chris. So sports betting has evolved so much now where we have these same game parlays. You can bet on the halftime parlays. You can bet on quarters. You can bet on a guy's rebounds, points, assists, combined points, assists, all kinds of different stuff that we'll be able to talk about. It's almost like the game within the game, Chris. And I still think there's a pretty good edge. We were actually talking that before we came on. with these player props. We think there's edges to be had and made, and good bets here that we feel good about, and over a long run where we'll be plus even. So that's what we want to look at. And hey, it'll be a learning experience for us, and even as well. I know we're both not hockey guys, but you know what? Maybe Beastie will be able to carve out, hey, this team here gives up a lot of shots, or the certain line versus this line, and where we'll be able to catch some edges and maybe bet on guys to score goals or get points and assists. And yeah, excited to look at this Piston game here tonight. I think we can find us some good ones here to look at. Maybe, Pistons are 10-point dogs. We're not thinking they're going to win 2 games where they're double-digit dogs, as we know with their last victory here against Milwaukee. But hey, maybe we can find us an edge here with a couple of these players. We can sit back and grab us maybe a M43 or a beer that we've had here recently, Chris, and root on our bets for the night.
Here we go. Love to hear that M43 coming out instead of the Modelo.
Yeah, like
so we're getting there. I think we're one for 2 on the beers. We'll be bringing that back hopefully this Friday. We'll be bringing back beers with beer. I'll have to come up with another one here. I got one in mind. Well, we're going to switch gears. I've said it's winter time. That means stouts, porters, more of your darker beers. So we're going to put Scott to the test. So try to ease him in. That will be on Friday's show. Special guest joining us tomorrow, a guy that I've known and worked with for quite some time here in the fantasy industry, Dan Bach of rotogrinders.com, going to join us on the show tomorrow, talk all about everything going on in the sports world. Dan is a college football expert, so we'll break down the championship game, Georgia and Alabama, and just shoot the shit with him. One of the better guys I've ever met here doing this, a good friend of mine. Done plenty of shows with him over the years on SiriusXM, Fantasy Sports Radio. So excited to have him joining us here on tomorrow's show, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan is like the ambassador of the DFS world. He's one of the guys always been out there fighting for the community, always been involved, and always fun to sit down and talk with Dan. I know I've been to several live events with him. He and I have always had some good times, good conversations. So excited to get him on here tomorrow, and really excited to see. He's down there in SEC land, Chris, as we know. He's down there in Florida. So I'm interested to hear what his take is. I'm kind of leaning Georgia so far, Chris. I think I'm going against Nick Saban here. I just think the Bulldogs are going to be ready for this one, but I'm interested to hear what he says about this one as well. Maybe he'll either solidify my thinking here, or maybe he'll change my mind. He'd have to be pretty convincing, but if Dan says something and he's convinced about it, I think you and I know by now it's probably a good idea to maybe follow his way.
Yeah, he knows his college football. He knows all the sports for sure. Very well-rounded player, has been around forever. You can't last this long in DFS without knowing some stuff. So excited to have him on the show. So that will be tomorrow. Scott, let's get into some NFL news. Again, we're gonna break down the slate here momentarily. So we'll get into some news. We'll transition to NBA. Look at the slate. Look at the injuries. Dig in on the Pistons game tonight. Back to the NFL. Break down the slate, and then we'll end with best bets here for the show. So a lot going on here on the show here today. All right, NFL news out of Cincinnati. There are a lot of things happening here. Joe Mixon test positive for COVID, so he will sit out this week against Cleveland. Joe Burrow also not expected to play here. So Cincinnati kind of locked into where they're at, so likely not going to see much of any of these guys here this week, and I wouldn't expect to see much Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, as well here. So they haven't committed on Chase yet, but I would expect Cincinnati to sit everybody down. Justin Fields will be back in the lineup for the Chicago Bears, so he will start this week against the Minnesota Vikings. Big news out of Tennessee. As we expected, Derrick Henry activated from the IR, expected to be back at practice this week. I don't know if we'll see him this week or not, but certainly gearing up for a playoff return. Obviously, welcome news here for Tennessee, their fans, to get Derrick Henry back in that lineup. Antonio Gibson activated from the COVID list for the Washington football team, so we'll see if he's back out there this week. Kirk Cousins also back for the Minnesota Vikings off the COVID list. So, Scott, any other news, notes, items of interest in the NFL here as far as injuries, COVID go here on a Wednesday?
Yeah, the big one for me is what Derrick Henry's going to do. I think that one is the big elephant in the room. The number 1 seed in the AFC all of a sudden is getting back the best running back in the NFL. So for me, I'm just kind of interested to see what he looks like, what's going to happen here. Because I think that Tennessee has a shot. I don't think they're getting the respect should be getting as a number one seed. I bet you if you asked a more common football fan, they wouldn't even know Tennessee's the number one seed. I'm sure they would all guess it's Kansas City. But yeah, Chris, I think that one's a big one. I mean, I know some of these guys are going to be out. Not really concerned about that as it's really week 18 as we went through. There's only a few teams that really have any kind of interest in really playing this week. But for me, yeah, moving forward, getting a guy like Henry back with Tennessee, I think that could really change the landscape of a playoff.
Yeah, huge. And if you're doing these playoff drafts, I mean, you may be able to get a decent price on him. A lot of people hesitate and they're worried. How's he going to be after an injury? That dude's superhuman. I think this is the first injury that he's had over the years of high school, college, NFL. So, I mean, he's a man amongst boys out there. So anytime you can get a little bit of a discount on a guy like that, you take advantage of it. So again, we'll have you covered next week. Looking into some of these playoff formats, Scott, I want to try to find as many different ones as we can, best ball, things like that, kind of break down how to play and let the people kind of ease in. If you're new to it, it's a lot of fun. Best ball specifically, that is, you just draft the team and let it ride. There is no waivers. You don't have to really worry about anything. You don't have to set a lineup. And in today's day and age, everybody's busy, kids, wives, girlfriends, husbands, whatever it may be. That is a form of fantasy football that's really gained steam here over the last couple of years. So next week on the show, one of the days, it's maybe slower on the calendar. We'll try to break some of those down so you guys can get entered into some of those contests. But let's talk some NBA here real quick tonight, Scott. Again, injuries are going to be the story here, so I'll rattle down some of the ones that we already know here for tonight. No Kristaps Porzingis for the Dallas Mavericks here tonight. So Luka looks like he is back, so he'll be the guy you certainly want an eye on here in DFS. Jimmy Butler will be out for Miami. Saw him with that ankle injury have to leave the game the other night. Bam Adebayo, remains on the shelf. No Damian Lillard for Portland. So again, Anthony Simons went nuts the other night, so he's certainly somebody that we could look at here. No Spencer Dinwiddie once again for Washington. A lot of game time decisions. Minnesota, D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's going to be out. We don't have official word yet. But we'll see. DeJounte Murray expected back in the lineup for the San Antonio Spurs. Rudy Gobert questionable here with a shoulder injury. Trey Young questionable with lower back soreness. And Kyrie Irving sounds like he may return to the lineup here for the Brooklyn Nets tonight. So those are the big names, Scott. Let's talk some DFS here, and then we'll dive into this Pistons game. We'll see if we can find some items we like here in this Detroit and Charlotte game. But quick thoughts on DFS in the NBA tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we got 11 games here tonight, Chris. I mean, this is the biggest slate of the week. And, it looks like we got some guys that could potentially be out, some pretty big names. But, one thing I like to look at, too, is guys, who guys are on back-to-back. Those are guys, too, you want to look at. Those teams, Sacramento, Toronto, San Antonio, and the Pacers are all on the second of a back-to-back. So make sure those guys are in there. That's where a lot of times you may see some of these guys sitting out, as but, kind of just looking through, obviously you mentioned some of these injuries that we know of at this point here, some value guys that I like you mentioned, Anthony Simons. I mean, that guy went off the other night. That guy was incredible. He's only 5,500 on FanDuel. He's really cheap. You still could get some value with them Indiana guards, Kiefer Sykes and Dwayne Washington. Both those guys get quite a bit of minutes there. Sabonis, obviously they're going to have some points come from somewhere. I think you're going to get a lot of usage out of Sabonis, so I like him. He's 10K. He's actually priced up. And then Chris, another guy you might want to pay up for as we talk about these stars and scrubs type lineups. But Trey Young is another guy that I'd be looking at paying up for. I mean, dude's coming off, I believe that's his career high last game, if I'm not mistaken. But, man, he's been looking really good, so I do like him. Maybe you could look at a guy like Miles Turner, another guy, maybe I can't say his name, Vedija for Houston, against Houston there. So I think that's a guy you could look at. Tyler Hero, he's another. But yeah, I like the stars and scrubs approach. I think Sabonis and Young are some guys I'd be looking at, and then maybe throwing in some of these value guys we mentioned.
That'd be Denny Avdia. Those are tough. I still stumble with a lot of those as well. So One injury I somehow overlooked, which may be the biggest big name on the slate that will not play tonight. Giannis Antetokounmpo out for Milwaukee tonight. So got that news earlier this afternoon. So Milwaukee, a team you certainly want to look at tonight. He is such a usage monster. So the easy one, Chris Middleton, the numbers are eye-popping with Giannis off the floor for Chris Middleton. But it trickles down to guys like Bobby Portis, Jordan Nwora, if he's back in that lineup. He's the cheap guy that you can look at tonight. You mentioned the Indiana guys. Kiefer Sykes was awesome the other night. Washington, he did all right. He got there. He didn't win you any tournaments or anything, but Sykes certainly looked good, looking to take advantage of his opportunity. So I don't mind going back to either of those guys. On the high end, Joel Embiid was a monster the other night. Gets another good matchup here with Orlando. I think the thing you worry about is Orlando stay in this game to keep Embiid in there long enough. But that interior, he should be able to do pretty much what he did the other night, dropped the triple-double in that one. And then some of the local guys, we're going to talk about here, but Kade Cunningham back in the lineup here. Saddiq Bey has been on fire recently, so I don't hate either of those guys either. So a lot of options, a lot of games. These are the slates where the ownership generally isn't too crazy. I think you're going to see a lot of ownership on those Indiana guards. Like we mentioned, Sykes probably the highest owned player on the slate. Simons will be popular once again. But cash games, you don't worry about ownership. You just get the best plays in your lineup and you roll them out there. So that's a quick look at the NBA in DFS. But, Scott, let's dig into this Pistons game tonight. We got Detroit and Charlotte tonight. You mentioned Detroit 10.5-point underdogs, 228 total in this one. And this one is interesting in that Charlotte plays at a very fast pace. I mean, they're top three in the league, where Detroit down at the bottom. They want to play a little bit slower here, but they're going to be forced to play at a faster pace. We're in Charlotte. They're the favorite. They're pretty much going to dictate what this pace looks like. So it's going to speed Detroit up a little bit. So any thoughts on this total? You mentioned the Pistons win the other night. So money line, we can get plus 410 here in the FanDuel Sportsbook on a win. I think it would be shocking to see them win again, but I can get 4-1 on my money. I don't hate that money line here. So what are you doing there? And I'll get some props here in a minute of guys I think are in a great spot here against Charlotte.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the landscape of the basics of the game, with the line and the over-under and stuff like that. I think, Chris, I was looking at these last two games with Charlotte. Both of them have been pretty high scoring, and they have started out really slow. Charlotte's been playing from behind. I mean, they got down to Phoenix. They ended up losing 133-99. They got down huge right off the bat. And then they got down really big to Washington, and then they almost came back, but that one was 121-124. So it does seem like they try to pick up the pace here, but it looks like in that Phoenix game, Phoenix got out to that lead, and they slowed that pace of that game down quite a bit there. That one did end up going under, but, I mean, they still gave up 133 points. So I'm not sure, Chris, if the Pistons are going to want to put up points like that to me. So I think I would be leaning like an under in maybe the first half today, maybe the under in the total game. I don't think here the Pistons, as you mentioned, are going to want to play that up-tempo type pace. So to me, if we can get a quarter or two where we don't have the points, it's really hard to get to that 230 number, these high numbers as we're seeing when, you don't have, 50, 60 point quarters all the time. So maybe we get a low scoring quarter. Maybe the first quarter is what I'm thinking. And maybe we can go from there. But, yeah, I think I like a slower pace game than what everybody else is thinking.
All right, let's dig into some of the props here. And one guy that has just been absolutely on fire here for Detroit, Scott, Saddiq Bey, is playing at an incredible level right now. We're seeing him Cade kind of runs the team. He's the guy you want the ball in his hands. But without Jeremy Grant, we've really seen Saddiq Bey kind of elevate his game. And I don't think the props have really caught up to what he's been doing lately. So there's quite a few here I like tonight in the FanDuel Sportsbook. Just looking at his points prop, sitting at 20.5, and a little bit of juice on that at minus 116, Scott. But he's hit that number 8 of the last 9 games. So this guy is putting up a ton of shots here, 22, 23, 19 shots over the last 3 games. They are going to have to score the basketball here tonight. So I don't see them slowing him down. Charlotte about middle of the pack in points allowed, 2 small forwards, just points. So I do think he's going to put up enough shots to really challenge this number. Also, his rebound prop sitting at 7.5. That one, you're getting at even money. He's done that in 5 straight games. So he's basically playing that Jeremy Grant role, and these prop markets just are not reflecting that, not respecting Saddiq Bey's game. You can also go up to 10 rebounds and get plus 240 on that. Now, that one obviously a little bit longer risk, but we've seen him go 10 or more rebounds 3 times over the last 9 games, including 17 rebounds in that game against the San Antonio Spurs here. I also like there's a points, rebounds, assists prop you can have. So tons of ways to bet here in the FanDuel Sportsbook again. And this is why we want to start to shine light on getting you guys the knowledge and letting you know that there are more bets than just money line, spreads, totals, which are fun, no doubt. That's going to be the bread and butter of the show. But I really think there's advantages here in this prop market. So Kade Cunningham, we mentioned, a guy that's always got the ball in his hands, always a triple-double threat. You can get his points, rebounds, assists tonight at 30.5. I like the over there as well. So there's going to be days that we like unders, days that they're going against a tougher defensive team, but a lot of overs here tonight. So again, Saddiq Bey over 20.5 points, done that in 8 of the last 9, over 7.5 rebounds at even money, done that in 5 straight. That 10, 12 rebound prop, you get some extra money on. And then again, Kade Cunningham, over 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists. So, Scott, thoughts on some of those props here, but looking pretty juicy here tonight if you want to spice up your Detroit Pistons viewing tonight.
Yeah, especially with Charlotte in town. We know Charlotte is just every time in DFS, Chris, one of those teams you got to look at who they're playing against just because there's so many, there's so many stats. They're just so fast. They're just running up and down the floor, like we mentioned, their pace of play. So I do like that. I really do think you're right. Like with some of these props, I don't think the sports books, we're in Detroit, we're seeing our teams. We get to see how certain guys are playing, maybe meshing well together. And maybe this is where we pick on something early and then we able to ride certain props for 3-4 days and, before they catch up to us. So this is what we're going to be looking for when we go through stuff like this and maybe find, little advantages or tendencies that maybe people aren't picking up on. Like I was saying, Charlotte has just struggled coming out the gate. So I also like an alternate first quarter. You can bet on the first quarter. You can bet on the alternate spread, Chris. You look at really -108 for the Pistons getting 3.5 points, or you could look at getting 2.5 points at +116 or 1.5 +138. So really, if we can think about, do the Pistons win the first quarter? Maybe they stay within a bucket or two. I like that. Yes, they're -10 in the game. Maybe we take that -3.5, or maybe we take that +3.5 or +2.5, and we look at that and maybe like a single game parlay or whatever else. But I'm just been looking at here. It seems to be a tendency. Charlotte's been starting out pretty slow, and then they really pick up the pace of the game, depending on if they're up or down. But they've been losing, so the pace of the game has been picked up. I think if Charlotte gets out quicker, I just think the Pistons are going to be right there in the first quarter. I think the Pistons are fired up, especially coming off their last victory. So I'm going to roll with the first quarter.
Yeah, there's you mentioned same game parlays. There's also ways you can do that. I just kind of threw one together here pretty quick. Saddiq Bey over 20.5 points and over 7.5 rebounds. Kade Cunningham over 18.5 points and over 6.5 assists. You can get that at +1277 on FanDuel. So all numbers that we've liked, all numbers that these guys have eclipsed on a regular basis, and you're getting almost 13-1 on that. Another one I like, they have these to score 30 or more points, to score 35 points. Saddiq Bey popping in both of those as well. So +510 to score 30 points, +1,800 to score 35 points. So scored 34 in that last game. He's hit 30 or more in 2 of the last 3 games. So those are other ways that you can look as well. So Saddiq Bey, Kade Cunningham, guys that I'm certainly looking at in this matchup tonight with the Charlotte Hornets. So that'll do it here. So again, we're going to try to do this a little bit more. So let us know what you guys thought of this. If you hit some winners on some of these, let us know that as well. But the FanDuel Sportsbook, where you want to go to check out all these amazing ways to bet, these single game parlays, the 30, 35, 40 points. Those are always fun. Just do it responsibly. It can be easy to start putting in a ton of different bets and putting all your eggs in one basket. But it's also a fantastic way to watch the game, have a little extra sweat on it. If maybe you're not trusting the Pistons to cover that 10.5, maybe hitting some of these props is the way to go. So again, we'll do this anytime a local team is on the docket. So today, Pistons shining here in the Woodward Bet Spotlight. All right, Scott, you ready to talk some NFL, my man?
Let's do it. Let's see. I
All
mean,
right,
we're going to
let's.
try to navigate through these waters. I mean, these are going to be
Yeah.
tough waters here this week 18.
Yes. So again, this is a week. Take it, dial it back a little bit with your DFS. It's always fun to play just because there are so many unknowns. It's kind of like the wild, wild west out there. I compared it yesterday to a preseason DFS, which is also a lot of fun, but very information driven. So just make sure you're locking in. You're not locking in some of these Bengals, things like that. So we'll walk through the games. There are 2 Saturday games this week. We'll leave those out. We'll discuss those on our Saturday show, Kansas City, Denver. In Dallas and Philadelphia. Scott, let's start with the local team here. Detroit hosting my Green Bay Packers here. The spread has kind of been all over the place here, and I think a lot of it has to do, is Green Bay going to play their starters? Are they not? How long are they going to play here? So, this line's been all over the place, and it still is. I'm seeing spreads as low as 2.5, on Caesars as high as 4.5. At places like Bet Rivers and Unibet and everything in between. So, thoughts on this one? It's hard to navigate this one without knowing for sure who's going to play. If the Packers starters are playing, I think the running backs look good in this spot. Devontae Adams is always a guy that we can look to. Lions side, do we get Jared Goff back? Do we see more DeAndre Swift here? So a lot of questions there as well. Thoughts on this one, Packers and Lions?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we got a lot of questions to be answered from now till then, but Green Bay does. They are pretty good as far as defense, as far as DVP. They're 8th in giving up points to running backs, 8th in giving up points to receivers. I mean, really the only guy you'd even think about here recently playing on the Lions is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, our new hero, our newfound star here that we have here for the Lions. So, I mean, he's a guy here that's been absolutely been on fire. I know for a fact he's won some fantasy leagues and some season long that I know of. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is a guy you look at, and then yeah, you're right. We'll have to see as how this week goes if they even release anything. If Aaron Rodgers is going to play more than a half, I think they let him go a half, Chris, and then I think they yank him and Devontae Adams. I think maybe they try to get out, but I think A.J. Dillon's a guy who's going to probably play most of the game. I think he's a guy here that I would look at, probably feel the safest playing. We know the Lions struggle against the run, so I think that would be a spot here to look at. And then, hey, if Boyle's playing, I mean, you got to kind of look at the Green Bay defense here too. So if that's something you're interested in, I think we saw he wasn't all he wasn't just he just looked scared. He just looked like a guy who's holding on the ball a little too much for me. I think Green Bay's got an opportunity to get a few sacks here and maybe a turnover. But other than that, Chris, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers plays, I think the Packers are just they'll get ahead of the Lions and they might fight back here. But I don't see the Lions here really having any sort of chance. Now, if we do lose. And I think if Jacksonville ties, I still think we don't get the number 1 pick. I was trying to look at that, what the tiebreaker was, if that's the case. But, yeah, I mean, the only thing here is what is Green Bay going to do with Aaron Rodgers?
And I think Detroit's happy to be in the top 2 here. We know the prizes at the top of this draft are the edge rushers, Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson. So you're going to land one of those 2 ideally here. This is not the year of the quarterback. I think you roll another year with Jared Goff, continue to build this team up. Next year, you're going to have likely some bigger names in the draft. We'll see if Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. I mean, there's a lot of names that could potentially be available at that point. So I think they're content with where they're at here. I think you can get some edge in this game in DFS. If it remains cloudy, if we don't know, nobody's going to want to play any of these Green Bay guys. So Detroit's defense has not been great, especially against the run here. Dillon's getting a little bit more expensive, the same price as Aaron Jones now on FanDuel, but he's the touchdown maker. He's the guy they use to kind of salt the game away. So you could see more A.J. Dillon in this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been fantastic. That price is elevated as well. And if it is Tim Boyle, Scott, you're right. The Green Bay, who knows Tim Boyle better than the Green Bay Packers? So that is certainly a defense I would like to play. We know they can get pressure on. Rashawn Gary coming back home, so he's going to be extra fired up in this game if he is indeed playing. So a lot of ways you can go in this one for sure here. So as far as props and things, the NFL, we don't have props this early in the week, which is a good thing because we'd be scattering bets all over the place. So Sunday, we'll dig a little bit deeper into this game and see what props we like, just like we did with the Pistons. We'll spend 4 or 5 more minutes on the Lions game to spice it up for you guys and make this one interesting. So we do that every Sunday at 9 a.m. make sure you're joining us for that show. All right, next game, Scott. We have Chicago, Minnesota. We talked about these two teams yesterday. Nothing really to play for here, so don't need to spend a ton of time on this one. Minnesota sitting at 2.5-point favorites here. Middling total at 44.5.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of laughing at that Mike Zimmer interview, and they asked him if he wanted to see Mond, their tight end, their quarterback again. He said, "No, I've seen him enough. I don't need to see him anymore." I thought that was kind of funny. He just came right out and said, like, "No, he is not what I want to see out there." So, but I mean, this is a thing here, with the Bears. I don't know, if they get Andy Dalton or Foles, or I think they're better with one of those two guys than Justin Fields. And this one here is just, yeah, uneventful. Really, not much going on here. If you look at some of these guys head to head, the under's 14-6 in their last 20 meetings. So, I mean, that might be something here to look at here. I think, especially if Minnesota still has issues at the quarterback position, might be able to fire at an under here. This one here already is at 44. I would think if we hear any news, it will probably drop. It's supposed to be pretty cold there too. So, I mean, we're looking at a pretty cold game. So we'll see what ends up coming out of this one. But yeah, pretty uneventful game here for the playoff landscape.
Yeah, I mean, Fields sounds like he's going to be the guy. Cousins likely to be back for this one, so I think both teams are going to have their normal starting quarterbacks here. I tend to side more with the Chicago guys in this one. It's just a better matchup for them. Minnesota has struggled against the run. Montgomery has looked great here over the last couple weeks. They've allowed the most wide receiver fantasy points this season. So Darnell Mooney, a guy that tends to fly under the radar every week. But all in all, a pretty boring game that I would grab a piece or two, but I wouldn't be stacking it or anything like that. All right, Indy and Jacksonville up next. Indy, obviously huge favorites here in this game. Seeing this one as high as 15.5 in some spots. So clearly a smash spot here for Jonathan Taylor, Scott. Is he a guy you want to pay up for this week?
Yeah, I mean, the Colts, we know they got to win to keep that playoff spot that they have. I mean, we don't seem to be too concerned that they can't beat Jacksonville, but they have struggled though, Chris, in Jacksonville. The Colts, I think they haven't won there since 2014, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, it's been a tough ride for them down there in Florida, but I just don't think Jacksonville has the horses here. I mean, you look at where you're at with as far as that Indy offense, they're number one. Jacksonville is 19th in giving up points to the running back here. So, yeah, I would look at maybe even like an Indy defense. That defense, I mean, the Jacksonville gives up the most points as far as the defense goes. So I think the Colts defense would be in a good spot. We know we like to pair the running back with our defense. So, yeah, if you can afford to get up to Jonathan Taylor, which you should, because there should be quite a bit of value here this week. So I think Jonathan Taylor actually may be a pretty popular guy, Chris, because I expect so many different things to open up with some of this value that we're going to see with some of these guys potentially sitting out. Uh-oh. Oh, we got a muter.
See, I was all excited here listening to you talk about Jonathan Taylor, but I agree with you. I think he's certainly going to be popular with the value. He is expensive, $10,200. He's clearing the field by $1,200 at the running back position, but a great matchup with Jacksonville. Went over 100 yards against them again. They need to win this game. So even if it gets out of hand, you worry about a blowout, he's probably a big reason why they're blowing him out here. So he would be the focus for me here in this game on Indy and that defense, like you said. Another play that you can look at. Pairing those two together always makes a lot of sense. All right, Tennessee and Houston up next. Again, Tennessee, 10.5 point favorites at most places. Kind of a low total here at 43. So Derrick Henry's back in that lineup. But do you trust him enough to play him? I want to see if he's even available here on FanDuel. Let's see. I don't see him even in the player pool. So, there he is. He's listed as IR. So he's 5,000 here on FanDuel, Scott. I don't know that he plays. I don't know that he plays this week. I think they're gearing him up for next week. But a $5,000 Derrick Henry is certainly something to look at.
Oh man, yeah. Could you imagine? He would be by far the all-time highest owned player in DFS if he gets back this week, Chris, and he's only 5,000 on FanDuel. I mean, that would be an automatic free square that you pretty much would have to play. I've heard he's running around. They're thinking about activating that. They obviously haven't, But you never know. Maybe they want to get him in there to bang it around a little bit before the playoffs come out. Just get him the touch and the feel of the ball. But yeah, that'd be definitely interesting, man. $5,000 Derrick Henry in DFS. That's just not fair. But you look at some of these teams here. The last 5 meetings in Houston, they have gone over. The Titans are 1-6 in their last 7 meetings down in Houston, so they've struggled. We know the Titans need to win to keep that number 1 seed here. So I think those are interesting. The Titans are actually 6-14-1 against their spread their last 21 meetings. So the Titans have obviously struggled here against these guys. But, man, I mean, the Titans are one of those teams that are just quietly moving on up the standings here. I know they struggled here. They had that little stretch here where they lost 3 out of 4. They lost to Houston. They lost to New England. They beat Jacksonville. And then they lost to Pittsburgh, but bounced it back with 2 good victories here against San Fran and Miami. So that defense is playing pretty well. So I don't see any issues here with Houston getting to beat Tennessee. I think that would be a stretch. But Chris, I think if Derrick Henry does get in there, I mean, I think he'd be limited anyway. I think they'd only give him a few touches. They don't really want to run him out there and put him in any kind of jeopardy. But I could just see him maybe getting out there just to bang it up a little bit and kind of get the feel of, getting smacked around. But I don't think they'd give him any more than a handful, even if he got out there.
Yeah, it's a great matchup. Houston has struggled against the run this season, 4th most fantasy points allowed over the last month. So they've struggled as we close out the season here. So if it's not Henry, Scott, Deonta Foreman's looked pretty damn good here, and a former Houston Texan. So at 6,900 on FanDuel, a good matchup, a revenge game as well. So he's a guy I certainly would have in my player pool as well, and actually one of the better plays at running back when you factor in price. So that's the way I would go here. Tannehill, we just haven't seen a big ceiling out of him. A.J. Brown, always a guy that you can look to. Houston, middle of the pack against wide receivers. Other side, Tennessee has struggled against wide receivers. They've been better of late, but it's always Brandon Cooks is pretty much the only option for us on that Houston side. So let's get to the next game. This one, not much better. We can probably save some time here, Scott. Washington and the Giants. Washington, 6.5, 7-point favorites across the board here. Total way down there at 38, as low as 37.5 in some places. Just not a very appealing football game here in Week 18.
Yeah, I mean, everything's falling apart. We know the Giants, I mean, their GM's begging to keep his job. The Washington Stadium's falling apart. I mean, nothing really here is going well for these two teams. I agree with you. I just leave this alone. It's pretty ugly. I mean, I don't even really like any of the running backs in this game. I don't really care for really much. So, yeah, I agree with you. We could just move on to some more fruitful stuff.
Yes, easy pass in that one. So let's move on to Pittsburgh and Baltimore. The Ravens sitting mostly 5.5-point favorites. Total right at 41.5 here. So again, both these teams are still something to play for here. Baltimore can play spoiler. They still have a shot. Pittsburgh has a very outside shot here. So what do we do in this one? It's two teams that know each other pretty well. We know Baltimore has really struggled with the pass, so I think Deontay Johnson stands out, but you can even go to guys like Claypool, the tight end Freiermuth, even Ray McLeod's been getting a lot more involved here. Baltimore, we'll see if they get Lamar Jackson back in that lineup, but Scott, this is another one. Outside of the Pittsburgh pass catchers, not a ton I like on the Baltimore side here this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. Baltimore's just been just awful this last month defensively against the pass. So, yeah, Deontay Johnson, I mean, we know that Big Ben likes to throw it to him. I mean, even Ray McLeod's been a guy he's been throwing it to a little bit here recently, along with Claypool. But, yeah, I think Johnson's a guy that would be a definite lock. Pittsburgh, obviously, is going to want to win. They got a slight chance to get in the playoffs. I think they're going to want to send Ben out with a victory, especially against these Ravens who, this division here, I mean, this has just been over Ben's career. I mean, this has just been a smash mouth division, obviously, with Cincinnati, the battles they've had, Baltimore, the battles. So, yeah, I think Ben would like nothing more here than to put one on Pittsburgh, Baltimore on the way out. And I think the way to do that is obviously through the air here. So, a guy like Freiermuth is interesting. I think you could look at him. But, yeah, not really looking at anything as far as Baltimore. Mark Andrews kind of slid back a little bit here this last week. But, yeah, interesting here to see if Pittsburgh can keep it going here and maybe keep their slim playoff hopes alive.
And once again, if you're joining us midway through the show, you missed it. This is always our initial look at things. Obviously, we're going to get a lot more news as we head closer to Sunday, but it's always a good exercise to get your initial thoughts down on anything in life. I think you get your initial thoughts, then you have some time to chew on it here, betting, whatever it may be. So we do this every single Wednesday on the show here, just getting our initial thoughts on paper. So that is the exercise here. For today. Things will change as we get closer to Sunday, and Sunday we'll tie a bow on this thing and give you our final thoughts here on each and every game, DFS-wise, betting-wise, and everything in between. So Cincinnati, Cleveland up next. We talked earlier, all the Cincinnati news likely to rest their starters. Cleveland going to be without Baker Mayfield here. It's probably a good thing the way he's been playing here, Scott. So another low total here. This spread is certainly on the move. With the news hitting, it's up to 5.5 at some places. Both FanDuel and DraftKings have it up that high here. So is this a Nick Chubb spot? Is this a stay away game? Maybe some of the backups in Cincinnati in play here. What are we doing in this one?
Yeah, I mean, this one's tough. I mean, Baker. I mean, without Baker, I think Case Keenum is definitely capable. The Cleveland fans have been calling for him the whole time. They actually think that they may have made the playoffs if Baker wasn't so selfish and tried to tough it out with his injury here. But you know what, Chris? I mean, just kind of looking here, I think Bengals without Mixon. I don't think that you're going to see the Bengals drop back and try to throw it all that much here today. I think you might see even a slower game, even without Mixon. I still think they are going to try to run a little bit here, dumb it down a little bit, try to keep their guys safe and ready here for the playoffs. We know that they really can't improve their situation all that much. So to me, I think this game here, they may rest some guys here. I don't think they're going to let Burrow stand back there and let Myles Garrett tee off on him. So I doubt that would be the case. But, Chris, I think I might be looking at an under here in this game. I think this game will be pretty slow-paced, and I think at this point that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I'm probably staying away from this one as well. It's just kind of ugly. I think there'll be some value in the Cincinnati backups here. If it is the week of Nick Chubb, I don't mind going there, but another pretty easy pass here. Next up, New England and Miami. So now we're in the late afternoon window. We talked yesterday how the NFL has done an amazing job keeping teams together, so there's no scoreboard watching. So this late window, a lot of better games here. New England, 6.5-point favorites in this one. Another low total is kind of the theme of the week. This one under 40 at some places here. So, Scott, what are we doing in this one? Miami was on a little run there, got punched in the mouth in that game last week against Tennessee, eliminated them from playoff contention. New England still a lot to play for here this week, so I think they're certainly a team we're going to want to pay attention to here. But is it the passing game? Is it the running game? Or are you avoiding them here this week against Miami?
I think it's the running game, Chris. I think they're just going to run the ball here. I mean, Miami beat them. There ain't no way in hell, if you ask me, if Miami's going to beat New England twice in the season. I just do not think that is going to be – that's not in the cards for me. So, you look at both these teams. Obviously, we know Tua's been playing pretty decent. But I just don't think the Dolphins are going to be able to keep up with the Patriots. I mean, man, Harris he's just been a beast. Stevenson's pretty well here. He fared, decent as well. So I think you see another game here where New England is just going to continue to do what they want to do, as we saw last week. They just kept running the ball right down their throat. And they scored 50 points doing it. I mean, we've seen it a few times this year. Patriots, they'll just continue to score. They don't care. So I actually do like the Patriots here in this spot. I think that they're going to win. They're going to get out in front by a few, and then they're just going to continue to keep going. So I'd roll with the Patriots and side with them here in this spot.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on Damian Harris, questionable. I've been dealing with that hamstring injury, so he says he's good, but you never can trust the player. So if he's in, it's a little bit harder to pick one of those two guys. They tend to split the work pretty evenly. Harris likely the more favored option in the goal line between them, but if he's out, I agree. Ramondre Stevenson would be a fantastic play. Miami, though, pretty good against the run. It's not a cupcake matchup, and that total tells us it could be ugly here in this one. I think the New England defense very much in play here in this game against Tua and company as well. All right, next up, the other team they're fighting with here, the Buffalo Bills hosting the New York Jets. Huge favorites, as you'd expect. One of the bigger numbers we've seen this season, 16. I'm seeing 16.5 here as well. Total has dropped a little bit here in this one, 42.5. But Scott, Buffalo, very much like New England, a lot to play for here, and you get an easy cupcake matchup to take it out here on the New York Jets.
Yeah, I mean Buffalo. I don't see how the Jets are even really going to score here on Buffalo. I mean the Jets have just been god awful. I just don't think that they got it in them even to stay with Buffalo here in the spot where they need to win. So I'm going to roll with Buffalo here. I mean some of these teams obviously we know they have a lot to play for, and then some really are going to be looking ahead to the offseason, getting back home and getting the season over with here. So I think the Jets. If they get down to Buffalo, they just may mail it in. Buffalo is just going to continue. And then you may see Buffalo, if they get up ahead, you'd be lucky to see Josh Allen and Diggs and them here in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, we'll see the Jets maybe. I mean, they're already missing a lot of players. Michael Carter now in the concussion protocol. Braxton Berrios, who was pretty good last week. I've been playing some good football for them. He's dealing with a quad injury, no practice today. So I don't mind the Jets with the points. I mean, we saw what they did against Tampa Bay. Buffalo we saw what they did against Atlanta. That tends to be the story. They're not a team really blowing people out. So, but if they're going to be without Carter, Braxton Berrios, who thought we'd be talking about those guys on the show today, it's going to make that job even harder. So we'll keep an eye on those. Speaking of Tampa Bay, they're up next here. Scott, Carolina coming to town here. Tampa Bay favored by 8 at most shops here right now. And you guessed, theme of the show here, low totals, 41.5. So very much preseason, very tiny totals across the board here. So Tampa Bay, what do we think they're going to do here in the spot? This Antonio drama still dragging on. I saw some more reports. He is dealing with an injury. His friends had him go to a doctor. He's in a ton of pain here. So I don't know how this thing resolves. But what I do know is Tampa in a good spot here at home against the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I think Tampa's going to want to get out there, Chris. You talk about it being a preseason. Well, I mean, they're going to have to kind of readjust their offense, obviously, with Godwin being out. We know Mike Evans is beat up a little bit. Now they're missing Antonio Brown. So I think their best bet here, Chris, is actually to incorporate their tight ends a little more. We know they have Brait. We know they have some pretty good tight ends over there. So with Gronk and those boys. So I think, to me, that's a place that they could look at maybe incorporating more in their offense. So I think you might see, maybe the first half or so where I don't want to say they're toying with him, Chris, but I think they may be trying to just take it as a game live kind of practice situation. And they may incorporate some new type stuff here moving forward because they're going to have to do something to get that offense rolling to be prepared for the playoffs. But, you look at a guy, potentially that you could look at as far as like running the ball. Chris, I think they really don't. I'm not sure about Ronald Jones. I told Easy last week, a turd's a turd. But I think they really like Keyshawn Vaughn. I think Keyshawn Vaughn's a guy that we might be able to look at, maybe get some value here in this game that could get some carries that I'd be looking at. But other than that, Chris, I think the tight ends are in play here today because I think that is the strength here of this Tampa offense at this point. So for me, I think if Tampa is going to score some points here, I think Gronk and Brait would be the guys I'd look at.
And Ronald Jones in a walking boot, so certainly a situation we'll have to keep an eye on here, dealing with that ankle injury, so no practice. They're going to keep him on ice till later in the week. So Keyshawn Vaughn, even Le'Veon Bell, they're on the Tampa Bay Bucks, saw some work in that game last week. So we know they love to bring in these veterans and count on them, so I don't disagree with Vaughn, but Bell could be intriguing here this week as well. So a lot of ways we can go with Tampa per usual. Next game, New Orleans and Atlanta. Saints favored by 4, 4.5 for the most part. 40 looks like the total here. So another ugly game. I think Taysom Hill always in play here. The Saints still a lot to play for in this one. Kamara, certainly a guy that we can look at. Atlanta not quite as bad against the running back as they've been in previous seasons. But outside of those two names, Scott, maybe the New Orleans defense, not a lot I'm liking on the Atlanta side on this one.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing really on Atlanta we'd even think about is Cordell Patterson. I mean, obviously he's been really good. Pitts may be a guy that'd be interesting too that, you could look at playing, but as you said, there's really nothing else there. But, New Orleans defense has just been really, really good here. I think, a guy like Taysom Hill, they makes him better. Like you mentioned, they do have something to play for. I think Taysom Hill has a record of 3-1, I believe, so far this year. So I think I would like just to take the Saints here in this spot. I think they're they're going to get the victory here. I think Tampa Bay would have a hard time, or Atlanta's going to have a hard time scoring any kind of points. So for me, give me the Saints. I'll roll with the Saints here so they can continue to keep those playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, we'll see what Atlanta does. Are they going to play their guys? Are they not? You could play spoiler here against their division rivals. So you mentioned Patterson, but Atlanta bottom 10 against quarterbacks, running backs, receivers as far as fantasy points go. So the Saints, again, not a ton of names we like, but I think Taysom and Kamara make for some good plays here in this one. Seattle, Arizona up next. Cardinals, 6.5, some 7s out there. This one we actually get a decent total here. At 47.5, up to as high as 48 at a few books. So what do we do here? I mean, we've had a lot of 39s, 40s, 41s. Is this the game people are going to be stacking? And then who do you want here? You know, Kyler, you're trying to decide, is it a Christian Kirk week? Is it an A.J. Green week? Do we go to the running backs here? Seattle, we finally got that big game out of DK Metcalf. So do we go back to that? Well, does it become a Tyler Lockett week? Who are some standouts in this one?
Yeah, I do like the Seattle side here more, actually. I think Wilson, I mean, this could be Russell Wilson's last game up there in Seattle. We're not sure how that's going to end up playing out yet, but that's going to be an interesting story that plays out in the offseason. But, yeah, I mean, DK Metcalf had his game. I mean, is this now, the trick is, Chris, you know dang well that Lockett will have the big game next time. Everybody will go to DK. And then Lockett's going to have that big game. But Gerald Everett's been a guy, too. He's been using quite a bit in the tight end spot. So I don't mind that. But Kyler Murray, I mean, he's just a quarterback / running back. But he's not looked like the Kyler Murray that we've seen in the past. So I think that Seattle defense, Bobby Wagner and the boys over there, I mean, they're pretty tough. I know Wagner went down last week with a little bit of injury there with against the Lions. But yeah, I think this game here definitely has potential to score some points. A.J. Green, like you mentioned, he's interesting. Zach Ertz is interesting in this game. But, yeah, the underdog has struggled mightily in this series here, 10-2-1 in their last 13 meetings. So, yeah, I do think this one here is the game that I would look at probably stacking up, Chris, as far as DFS. And I think I would really look at that Seattle passing game for me.
Yeah, I like this game as well. Obviously, I mean this is our 55 on a normal week with these totals and spreads. So a lot of ways you can go in this one. We'll see what some of the health looks like for some of those Arizona guys, but this one has a lot of ways, a lot of fruitful plays in DFS. So as far as a bet goes, I think Seattle keeps this one close. I think they don't have much to play for other than let's go in and try to put a dent in Arizona's dreams, who's already in the playoffs, but. I still think you're going to see a focused Seattle Seahawks team here. So liking Seattle in the points as of right now. All right, last game. This one, a lot on the line here for both teams, San Francisco and the Rams, mostly the San Francisco side. They need to win this game. They are 4.5-point underdogs here, 44 on this total, Scott. So we saw Elijah Mitchell back in that lineup. The guy continues to churn out numbers. So I do like going to that well. We'll see if it's Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance. Under center here, Deebo Samuel's been a monster. Can always play George Kittle. Other side, Cooper Kupp has been a smash play. Sony Michel has handled most of the running back duties there. So another game, a lot of options. Who's standing out as some of your favorites here?
Yeah, I mean, this one here is a good game, especially for us Stafford fans and the Rams. But, yeah, I think you could look at Sony Michel. He's been really strong here recently, getting the majority of all those carries, which I think – is obviously huge. OBJ has been scoring touchdowns at a pretty good pace here recently as well. Good pairing there with Kupp. So, yeah, if you want to look at a guy like Stafford, you guys obviously have two receivers you could use there. But for me, San Fran, I mean, it's about really Deebo Samuel. If Deebo Samuel is having a good game, that San Francisco offense is in a pretty good spot. So he is the guy there that I would look at as far as the 49ers. But Trey Lance, yeah, he got in there last week, but I'm not quite sure if he's quite ready yet. But he does bring the rushing upside if he's in there. I know he's been fairly cheap in the DFS circles, but for me, I like the Stafford combination with maybe OBJ that I would look at. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pay up for Kupp. I think if I was going to pay up this week, Chris, I think I would probably more rather pay up for a running back this week than I would rather pay up for some receivers, because if these teams get up, I think you might see them just kind of pull back the reins and then start running some of these, these running back, they're second down. They're second string and third string backs, especially for some of these teams that we know are going to be in the playoffs. So will be interesting to see how that fares out. As you mentioned, one of the 425 games. But yeah, we'll see if OBJ can keep up that touchdown streak. I think he's got 4 games in a row now, Chris. I think he scored a touchdown. So I think OBJ is a guy that I'd want to look at.
Yeah, it feels like this game, the Seattle-Arizona game, are really going to be the ones people load up on here for good reason. I mean, there's motivation on both sides. So these are ones to circle. Going to be fun to watch and see how this all plays out, as it always is. Let the drama unfold, as they say. But for DFS, it's going to be a fun full slate. It'll be a fun afternoon slate as well with all these big games on the docket. So we'll continue throughout the week here to look at injuries. COVID, again, is tearing through the sports world, through the real world. So we'll keep you updated. Make sure you're joining us for the latest here on the show. We go 6 o'clock Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Every Saturday. And, of course, our big NFL show, 9 a.m. every Sunday. If you're a big Lions fan, you're going to want to join us. We'll find some props and things in that game, discuss that game every way we can, Scott, to find some of the best bets. I'm going to be in the house, so look for some of those bets to enjoy that game. And if you're there, you're at the game, come find me. You'll see me. Big guy, maybe wearing some cheese on his head. I don't know if I'll go that far, but excited to go check out some Green Bay and Detroit on Sunday. But that will do it for our look at the NFL Week 18 slate, Scott. But we can't leave the people without dishing out some best bets. So what do we got here for tonight? We've talked NBA. We've talked NFL. What do we got? Best bets Wednesday night. Give the people some winners.
I got 2 in the NBA. I am going to roll with the Golden State Warriors, giving the Dallas Mavericks 5 points on the road. I think Golden State, with all the injuries and everything going on down there with Dallas, I think you could definitely chalk up Golden State there. I like that one. And the other one, Chris, I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks. I like how Trey Young's been playing. They're on the road, giving 2 to Sacramento. But I just think the Hawks, as well as they've been playing, I just want to put my money on Trey Young. I just think he's one of the better young stars we have coming up here in the NBA.
All right, I'm going to go a team spread here. I'm going to go with Miami, minus the 2. I know they're going to be without Jimmy Butler in this game, but Portland going to be missing Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. They're going to be down their best players as well. So Miami, the better team, the team that can afford to lose a few pieces and still play at a high level here. So I like Miami to go in there and win pretty handily here. And then I'm going to go with some of those props we talked about with the Pistons. The more we dug into that, Scott, really love the points prop on Saddiq Bey at over 20.5 here. Again, minus 116 in the FanDuel Sportsbook. I like his rebounds as well, over 7.5. And then I'm going to roll that 4-team, same game parlay. So if you guys want to follow along, want a tail on that one, those 2 bets. So Saddiq Bey over 20.5, over 7.5 on the rebounds. And then we're going to include Kade Cunningham over 18.5 points and over 6.5 assists. That pays us plus 1184. So we're going to throw that here on the best bets as well. So Pistons heavy in this edition of Woodward Bets. But let's go Pistons. Let's go Saddiq Bey. Let's go Kade Cunningham tonight. So Scott, final thoughts for the people Wednesday night. What do we got?
Hey, bust out the money gun. Let's get us some winners. I like what we got going here with the Kade and Saddiq Bey. So let's get us some lunch money, and we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll break down some more games for you guys. But appreciate you listening. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're on Spotify, all those other good, wherever you want to get your podcast. So get out there and check it out. But we will be back tomorrow, and we'll be throwing these hundreds around like usual around here. So let's get it going.
Let's get it going. And absolutely, if you tail on that bet, let us know. Reach out to us on Twitter at Woodward Bets. Make sure you're following the network as well at Woodward Sports. Some great stuff going on each and every day. And don't forget, special guest joining us, our boy, Dan Bach from rotogrinders.com, joining us to talk sports on the Thursday show. So make sure you're joining us for that one. For Scott, for our boy Spencer behind the glass, for our Detroit Pistons here tonight. Let's hit those props, boys. We are Woodward Bets. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with your DFS, your fantasy, and your bets. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow.